All right. Hello.
Hello.
It's Paul.
How's it going, everyone?
That's Paul.
That's me.
He's in the same room as I am. Can everybody hear us all right? Just in case. I just want to make sure that you can hear us because, the microphone situation could be a little dodgy. It's a little different than we normally have. Quite a bit different.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing more clothes than I normally do, so that's always good.
He does have pants on this time. Normally for the podcast, he
Shoes,
doesn't.
Pants, all that kind of good stuff.
So anyway, what's everyone saying, Paul? Is there audio? Is it working? We hear you. Excellent.
They're hearing fine. I'm not saying necessarily they like what they're hearing, but...
Well, if you don't like it now, wait.
Just wait.
Wait, because, folks, I have put together...
We have notes.
Front and back. I have put together 2,500 words, including Paul's scroll at the bottom here.
Yeah.
I've put together 2,500 words to comprehensively, I might add, review this season with you.
And he made me actually sit down and read them finally before the show. Normally I can get away with it. Did you read the notes, Paul? I'm like, yes. But he actually made me read them to him. So.
I did. So happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Glad this is working and that you can hear us well, so that's good. Using my new fancy software, so hopefully we'll be able to do more video because, who doesn't want to see more video with Paul?
Right.
Which is always good. Oh, hey, Paul.
Hey, we got a cat in the room.
We got a cat in the room. May need to let that cat out.
Okay. We're going to have to... Should we start again? No.
Let's start with the Christmas.
Can we get the cat out?
Yeah, get the cat out.
Okay, I'm going to get the cat out. It's all part of my duties. Okay, cat.
This is awesome.
How can you have a pop from a podcast without mentioning cats?
The funny thing is that everybody's like, stop talking about the cat. I can't. As you can see,
it's Grace's fault. I don't have a cat, so...
Paul doesn't have a cat. He doesn't do cats. I have two, and it wasn't my choice. Otherwise, I'd have a dog, but it's not really my choice. When it comes down to the cats, oh, boy. It's not my choice.
Not good enough, damn it!
Cat
Not
left
good
the
enough!
building, by the way.
Yeah, the cat did leave.
Yeah.
So, Paul... Normally, we do these as a podcast, and we review the season really no differently. We're going to go through the team. We're going to talk about the drivers. Paul's going to share his thoughts. I'm going to share my thoughts. So maybe we should just get started, shall we?
We may as well. The preamble's pretty much over at this point.
Have we talked about enough cheese, wine, and cats?
We haven't talked about cheese. We've got the cats in.
All right,
cheese will come later.
Cheese will come up with later when we talk about driver pairings. That'll work.
All right. The wine cheese pairings, whatever.
So, in my comprehensive notes, folks, your winner for 2018, as you all know, is Lewis Hamilton, followed by Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen for the top three.
Sorry, I had a call for the ornament on the tree.
Oh, that's my ornament.
Peter. Yeah,
it's a Mach 5 there.
Yeah,
that's my ornament. Very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Peter's on. Look at that. Paul, Gigi, Dave are on. Look at all those folks. That's awesome. So anyway.
Kids.
What's that?
The cool kids.
The cool kids. Yeah, clearly you guys are the cool kids. All right, so we're going to start right at the top, Paul. We're going to start with Mercedes, and what I'm going to tell you about Mercedes is that Mercedes had 655 points, and Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, the points break down between those two as 408 points for Lewis, 247 for Valtteri.
Ouch.
And the qualifying head-to-head battle, 15-6 in favor of Lewis. So, shall we take a moment and pause on that? That's
15-6. Well, it's a hefty dynamic right there, but not even the worst about all the teams. So, but as you'd expect from, Lewis, who is a prolific qualifier, always has been, up against someone that's still trying to find his way at Mercedes, quite honestly, and maybe losing his way a little bit.
Well, that's kind of what I allude to. You want to hear my notes on that?
Go for it.
Okay.
It's way better when you speak them than when I read them.
There's the worst thing you do on a video podcast is you read your notes. You would think I've committed these, but at my advanced age, that doesn't work anymore. So here's what I wrote. Let's start with Lewis, shall we? Yeah. Lewis, in my mind, was inch perfect this year in many ways. I believe, and we've talked about this, that in my mind, this may be his best season, I think, in his career. in my mind, also, Lewis has reached this zenith of really several things: experience, speed, racecraft skill, his technical knowledge, patience, brand building, in a series that really right now is oddly struggling to build their brand, and yet you look at Lewis, he's doing a terrific job. It's hard to imagine, really, in my mind, a better season than 2018. It was replete with a sort of a come from behind attack, and once again this reversal of fortune mid-season where Lewis and Mercedes just poured the coals to it, absolutely came storming back through, removing any sort of the slightest hope of Ferrari had of winning the championship by come August. And I think it was really that reversal that turned around, and you know, you and I've talked about that. That it just seemed like it started out the season, you had Melbourne, you had that win with Ferrari, but you know, you could argue that Mercedes sort of didn't read the tea leaves correctly on that. And then it got to about August, and it was almost like they flicked a switch. You could argue also that Ferrari was sort of imploding at that point, trying some things that didn't work. But for Lewis, it was just an impeccable season.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about Mercedes' success without talking about Ferrari's lack of success, and maybe, you know, they were tripping themselves up, and Mercedes were able to score points where they shouldn't, and then Ferrari basically put themselves on the back foot where they got a little bit more desperate, and they had to try all kinds of different other things to try and gain performance and gain results more than even performance, just somehow to stop Lewis from running away with it.
Right.
And it seemed like every time they did that, it actually worked in reverse.
Yeah.
Which always happens, you know, when you don't have many more options, you don't have the confidence of being in the lead and having a cushion, and you're chasing.
Right.
And then it seems to be getting bleaker and bleaker. You get more desperate, and I think, you know, some of their calls and some of Vettel's driving even kind of played into that.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't even know if it's a question that Lewis had the best season ever. He's been fast always.
Yeah.
But the dips and valleys that he's had, and some of the things we criticised him for in the past, where his mental side maybe gets in the way of maybe performing on a certain weekend, that just didn't crop up this year. I mean, it's either he's getting more set with himself, you know, he's getting older in his career. I don't know about more mature, but he's kind of, he maybe even see the end, and that's forced him to react rather than be an upstart guy just trying to improve himself every race. And I think sometimes as a driver, that allows you to relax and makes you actually a faster, better driver, and those dips and valleys are less and less.
You know, we talked about that in the past when the pressure sort of comes off, right? Mm-hmm. In a sense, you look at the way that Kimi, or even you could argue Ericsson, or in the past when drivers have known what the outcome at the end of the year is and what they're going, just that pressure comes off,
right?
And then they really don't have much to lose, and they really pull it together, and you can see. I mean, Kimi arguably had some of his best driving after we knew that he was going to Sauber, you know, which is interesting. But yeah, I agree with you on Lewis's standpoint. But it is a great point. I hadn't thought about that way, Paul. You know, he knows he's got this trajectory to 2020 to 21.
Right.
He knows that's when his contract ends. He knows what he's trying to achieve. He's got sort of this master plan, if you will, and maybe in his mind, you know, it's all pretty much sorted, and so it's just head down, focus, comes in each weekend and does well. But it was a masterclass for sure.
I mean, I said the dips and valleys were so, and he really had the perfect season, even though he didn't have the perfect car.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, Valtteri, obviously, we saw the qualifying differences. That's one thing you'd probably expect that.
Yeah,
it's the difference in points is a lot for the team that won actually the Constructors' Championship. So Valtteri is definitely, you know, I think you wrote in one of the articles that you don't see Valtteri as that kind of guy that's kind of caving in and maybe getting, but I think he actually is. Yeah. And I think some of the words that you said after the series, that he needs to get away and needs to resort himself out, plays into the point that he actually didn't have it all together, and that's actually exactly what was happening in the latter half of the season. So,
I saw a tweet from him last just like last week. And he said, holiday break, and he's on a stationary bicycle with an oxygen mask, and he's just pounding him out. I thought, cue the Rocky music.
Well, the cool thing is that Bottas is actually going to go rallying. I don't know if anyone's seen that.
Yeah, I did.
And I've talked about before where actually driving in a different discipline can be refreshing for a driver because, Valtteri Bottas has just been driving Formula cars and Formula One cars. It's very single-mindedness, but sometimes you get out of that and you go into stay in the same realm because you're still in motorsports.
Right.
You get to go it's a breath of fresh air, and plus you learn little techniques from driving in different disciplines that you can bring back to the table.
Right. We talked about with Alonso and Indy.
Yeah, and even when Kimi, when Kimi left, I'm not sure you can glean much from driving NASCAR trucks and bring it back to Formula One, but
and
definitely
Kubica maybe learned a little too much.
Yeah. So and it's not even necessarily something you've written down a note. Okay,
yeah.
I'll try this when I'm back in the Formula One car, but it does change your thought process maybe just that little bit, and so maybe it'll be stronger for Bottas. But Bottas really has to get inside himself and bring out his inner Rosberg to some degree, because that's the only way that he's going to actually be able to even contend with Lewis, let alone try and beat him.
Right.
And he's out there, as you wrote in the article, we've got, so now you've got Ocon breathing down his neck.
Exactly.
And he could conceivably implode in Formula One and be out of Formula One forever after next season, even though he's got a top ride right now.
Or sooner.
Or sooner
really
if they don't
upset
make
with
it
him.
through. So Valtteri has a lot to prove and a lot to work on over the season. Lewis, for whatever he's done as he's built these blocks, and it may not be just a matter of that he can see, he's winding down his career and he's made him relax. He's just another year and he's just a better person, but he was definitely the best driver on the grid. Tough for Valtteri to compete against, but that's what he's in Formula One for, is to win races, win championships, and that's what Valtteri needs to do. He needs to not be so amenable, perhaps, be a bit dirty, be a bit nasty, not be so... we've seen various things in the season where Valtteri had to give up a lead, for Lewis. At Germany, he had to step back from attacking Lewis, and, he lost that race at Baku because, that wasn't anything to do with him. But all these things, I think, are affecting him, and he needs to be a bit more boisterous with giving up everything. This is his last year, so if he's going to do anything in Formula One, I think he necessarily has to be a bit more abrasive, even to Toto Wolff.
I agree.
Once he gets to to
when they tell him to pull over, let Lewis by, you don't pull over.
Yeah.
So so anyway, hey, thanks for everybody joining us, because we are doing this live, as Paul would say.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. So hopefully,
so we got some questions. I don't know if you want to get.
Ask a couple questions.
So Gigi the Cat said, "Do any drivers steal kart regularly?" I think most of them do.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic way to keep fit. You can, it doesn't matter how much pump of the iron you do in the off season. If you're not moving with moving objects, approaching corners, etc., it's a fantastic motorsport in itself, but a fantastic motorsport for Formula One drivers to do, where it's not super expensive.
Yeah.
Formula One drivers can definitely afford a super fast kart. They have a lot of grip. They'll wear you out.
Yeah.
And so it's a fantastic way to keep your skills honed. What else do we go? Why don't I have an IPA? Well, Todd's on a budget. He only gave me water today, so
it's actually.
And even his very kind wife got it for me, not even him. He didn't even offer me. He was drinking his Coke and said, "Get on with it, Charlie." So
I was focused, man. I was thinking. I was trying to make sure this didn't turn into a complete dumpster fire, which hopefully it hasn't. Yeah, I have water as well, Paul. So what did Peter ask? Peter asked something about Baku.
Peter asked, "Did Baku single Lewis's one-upmanship over Vettel?"
What do you think?
I'm not sure. That's a tough one.
I would say, Peter, that it was Germany returning the favor from Seb winning Britain, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was the definitive line in the sand for the season, if you were going to put it. I think that sort of turned the tide. The points haul was huge for Lewis. It was a bloody nose for Sebastian. Mm-hmm. Not only that he lost his home Grand Prix, but he put it in a wall, right? So I think that was a turning point that really started Ferrari's unraveling.
It was interesting, his reaction to that mistake at Germany.
Yeah.
He didn't seem that he was like, oh, well, it's a mistake, I can claw it back. But obviously we found out he couldn't.
Yeah.
But I felt he should have been a bit angry at himself. He just kind of blew it off, and maybe that's just what he's laying out to people. But, I would say Germany was probably the biggest issue, and the biggest part for Lewis was not having a bad race at Baku was good also. And anywhere else that he was hurting at in previous years.
Yeah, and John's right. We are in St. Louis, Missouri. That's in the middle of America. If you take a map of America and put your finger, it's Missouri.
If you just look through the tree, right over there, you can see the arch.
Just the arch.
Just right below.
Yes, my comments on Valtteri were, he conceded victory in Russia, suffered a puncture in Azerbaijan, and while Toto was furious about the Baku incident, he was less conciliatory about asking Bottas to move over in Russia. How does that play into drivers' minds? Well, folks I've read said that Valtteri is beaten down and demoralized. I've argued that it's not necessarily the Valtteri that I think I know.
Yeah.
But if he wants a contract for 2020, he'll have to knock Lewis's feet off the desk. That's the bottom line at this point. He has the same car as Lewis does, yet wasn't able to produce the results. And while some may be inclined to say the team favors Lewis, that may be true in my mind, but the sister car is just as capable of taking pole position, just as capable as winning races, and yet Valtteri didn't deliver, and now he has Ocon breathing down his neck.
Yeah, and I heard on the Motorsport podcast they were saying they think Valtteri's as good as Rosberg, maybe in pace. I'm not sure that's true.
I don't know. I think, if anything, it's exposed that we underestimated
Rosberg. I think that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, think of the qualifying efforts that Rosberg did and how close he and Lewis, even if Lewis won the majority, and I can't remember what the stats are there, but honestly, Rosberg was within a tenth every time. Valtteri has not done that, so I don't think Valtteri is a direct replacement for Rosberg in pace or skill, really.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Any other questions before we move to Ferrari? You want to answer?
What do I want? Yeah.
Okay, Paul, technicality on Leavenworth, Kansas. Work with me there.
Okay, Peter says, my wife Sandra wants to know if all about Kimi's change to Sauber and how much Ferrari influenced that decision. Well, we're going to get into Ferrari right now, so I guess we're going to talk about Kimi.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
I'm not sure that it doesn't seem like Ferrari really had much to do with the Sauber issue. I think Kimi kind of made that decision unto himself. I mean, other than saying Charles Leclerc's leaving an open seat. I mean, we don't know underneath why that is, and we didn't expect Kimi to go there. But I think Kimi going to Sauber wasn't that Ferrari then said, "Oh, you're going to go to Sauber now." It's that he had the opportunity to go somewhere that's 40 minutes from his house.
Yeah.
Kimi's all about his own personal life as well as he just wants to drive Formula One cars and keep things simple. So it's the perfect match for Kimi to go, and the pace that the Sauber had gives him a really good place to go, I think.
And I think it's maybe a little less guided by Ferrari in the fact that Ferrari already placed Antonio Giovinazzi, right? So they already took one seat in Sauber, and put Giovinazzi in there. So as far as Ferrari's concerned, they've got their guy in the seat, the development guy in their seat. So the other seat is open. I don't want to heap too much praise and give him too much credit, but and we'll get into this on Sauber, but I think Fred Vasseur's done an amazing job.
Amazing job.
So we'll get into that. Let's talk about Ferrari first. Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen. Points between the two in favor of Vettel, 320 to 251. Qualifying again in favor of Vettel, 17 to 4 on the balance. Vettel's story was a tale of two halves for me, with a strong opening performance only to be unraveled at Hockenheim and then slowly to degrade from there when a few unforced errors that aren't necessarily indicative of Sebastian's perceived skills. There's no doubt that he had a role in ending his title bid, and perhaps most serious is his wheel-to-wheel battling skills that perhaps need some dusting off. Adding to Seb's error, Ferrari offered a series of their own mistakes in 2018 updates, finding them wandering into the long grass, and those elements went a long way to leaving Seb in a position to having to overdrive the car to recapture its lost pace. It's a shame because the first half of the season, fans felt this could go down in history as a real cracking season, but it slowly turned into another domination by Mercedes, and this time it didn't have Nico to spice things up on the inside of Mercedes. It's kind of how I saw Vettel's season. How did you see it, Paul? Talk us through it.
So, well, I mean,
tough season, Paul.
I was thinking about Vettel because we know, we talked about Hamilton's weaknesses in the past, and now for sure we know how strong Hamilton is at this point. He's kind of figured it all out and put his priorities where they need to be in order for him to perform every week. Right. And Vettel has kind of lost some of that. I was actually thinking, where did that turn? And I'm actually thinking all the way back to his last year at Red Bull.
You think the Ricciardo beating?
I think. Think about the last year he won the championship. The slow blinking Vettel. Everyone. This guy's like living on a different planet to everybody else.
That whole lap, the visor camera, Abu Dhabi didn't blink once.
And I think that started Vettel having to doubt himself a little bit. He didn't have any threat before that point, and Ricciardo took more points, and then he moved to a different team.
Tell me about Vettel's relationship with his mother.
Well, I don't know about that, but So we said last year that he was still making mistakes last year.
Yep.
And that he needed to eliminate some of those, and he didn't manage to do that. He made more mistakes, and as I said, then that kind of forced Ferrari into a chase mode, which then didn't actually work out for them. They started making bad decisions on track, bad decisions maybe in the evolution of the car, and Vettel was still making bad decisions on the track. So he's got some chinks in the armor, and you're like, what? Why the hell did you do that? And it certainly seems to be more at the beginning of the races. His racecraft, his seeing the big picture. There seems to be something missing there, and we've always seen, or a lot of people have spoken about, his ability to pass. Because he didn't have to do that when he was dominating in Red Bull.
Right.
And we were all like, well, he haven't had the chance to. He doesn't need to switch teams to prove himself. But I think some of that stuff is actually holding true. That he does have not necessarily the perfect racecraft. He's a very fast driver. He can feel the tyre. He can brake late. He can put in qualifying laps. Sometimes I think maybe his qualifying performances are actually better than actually his race performances.
Now you're scaring me because I went 185 miles an hour with him. It's like, wow, the guy's crap! Whoa, I went 185 miles an hour this close to a wall with him.
Right, and I know that that was a profound choice in your life, but in reality, most Formula One drivers could have done the same thing. Right, but that was your opportunity, for that.
Right.
So
in reality, I took my life in my own hands. Right,
you
there,
did, yeah.
I just didn't know it.
If was you approaching another car to pass it, I probably would have jumped out.
We would have banged wheels with it.
Yeah. And, so he needs to look inside himself and take some of the blame, which I'm not sure he does. Most of the time,
well, he doesn't make excuses. I think at the end of the season, he said, "Better guy won." Bottom line,
right. But he's not literally blaming. I don't think he necessarily takes the full blame onto himself sometimes, and not that Hamilton does either, mind you. But I think he needs to do a bit more of that and self-analyze himself just that little bit.
Right.
And to win a championship, it's not being the first at the first corner. It's a big document of work through a whole season, and you drop a couple. Unless you're in a dominant car. Things can get a bit desperate, and that's what they did. And if you're that way inclined, the desperation then makes things worse, quite honestly.
Yeah. Although I guess in defense of him, there were plenty of times this season where he was towards the back and pretty much passed his way all the way back up to the podium. I mean, I don't buy the whole notion that he can't pass and he can only win when he's leading. I don't know that I buy that, but. Shall we talk about the Keemster?
The Keemster.
Okay, here's what I got. Kimi's high water mark was, for me, pole position at Monza. And while the slipstream from his teammate made drama and bent feelings, it was a great result for a driver who has struggled with qualifying for some time now. You and I have talked about years past. Yeah. That's his Achilles heel, is qualifying.
You start 4th or 5th.
And he turned that around this season, Kimi's win in Austin was a return to form and a reminder that he very well could be the perfect fit at Sauber with no pressure, nothing to lose in a car that's moving its way up the grid.
Yep.
And I think that's a good fit. Regardless, on balance and points, you have to finish on the tail of Vettel or beat him. And Kimi left a lot on the table in that respect, and I think that's why Ferrari's parting ways with him.
Yeah, I think he had another year left in him. As you said, I think he was driving very well, and I think it would have been better for Leclerc to actually lead that team, take a bit more of a, not a senior role, but an experienced role in Sauber before he needed to jump to Ferrari. But as we see, the Max factor has led to led to these guys, being forced into the top ride very early, right? And Max, did pretty well, although we've seen some.
Well, he spent 3 years banging wheels, losing wings, and everything else.
Right. And Leclerc doesn't seem as that way inclined.
No,
Leclerc is just fast.
He's awesome,
and he doesn't seem to make the mistakes that even Max would make at the same.
You didn't see him this year.
No. So, and, someone was asking, if Leclerc, this is a Kimi story, but we're talking about Leclerc for a second. If Leclerc was in a dog of a car, would we be speaking about the same thing about him? I don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know if he's in a, how do you compare that? But usually, as we always say, a really good driver finds a way of making an impression somehow, somewhere, at some point in the season. You get that chance and you grab it by the scruff of the neck and you take it with you. So even if it was a one-off deal where the Sauber was clicking, I really believe we would have seen Leclerc show himself up. But Kimi, I thought he had a great season. I thought it was, we've kind of written him off a couple of times, and this season was his best season within the last 3 or 4 seasons, I would say. So it's a shame to see him have to move along when maybe he was gaining some of his mojo back.
Right.
The one thing that still is missing a little bit is his aggressiveness fighting for position.
He leaves some doors open.
He does. Yeah. And I think that's why Seb has been able to maybe have that big an advantage there than anywhere else, is that Kimi's racecraft is just a bit more conservative.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about Vettel, where it's not conservative enough sometimes. So maybe Kimi and Seb have a baby, he'll be a Formula One World Champion for the rest of our lives. But I don't know.
They both like free practice.
And interviews.
Yeah. Tom Firth, I'm giving you an A- actually, for your efforts. Okay, next up. Paul, I wasn't doing this fun thing. Look what I can do.
Oh, right.
Watch this. Next up, Red Bull.
Nice.
Huh? Nice.
Technology.
Nice dissolve.
Or am I supposed to point it? I want the bouncing logo. That'd be fun.
There, that just came up. Red Bull, 419 points. Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen, the points break down as such. 170 points for Ricciardo, 249 points for Max Verstappen, qualifying 5 to 15 in favor of Verstappen. Paul, there was a time when the world perked up and took notice of a young Australian who beat his teammate Sebastian Vettel, which you just referred to, and rightfully so, as Daniel is a rare talent indeed. Unfortunately, I would argue, Paul, that he's just been repaid the favor in the form of Max Verstappen, and this season was a harsh mental blow for the Aussie. I think it was pretty tough to handle for a host of reasons. Daniel savored his 2 victories in China and Monaco this year, and there were other races, honestly, that I think he may have done really well with. Let me try this in English. There's other races that I think he would have done really well in had he not had horrible unreliability. So he had the unreliable Renault. You couple that with the very reliable Max Verstappen and fiercely quick Max. I think that dealt a serious blow to him. I did see him fight back, though. I think there were plenty of places where he hit the wall. He was just mad. He fought back.
Yeah.
You think of Mexico, but ultimately, I saw the writing on the wall, and I think he did too. That this team and Max is a pretty strong force, and I think that's why he's going to Renault. That's not taking anything away from Dan, because I think Dan is a whole lot of awesome, and I love watching. A lot of people voted Dan's pass on Valtteri at China for the lead as the pass of the season, which I'd be hard pressed not to. I thought that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a tough season, and what do you do if you're Dan? I would say with the amount of retirements and DNFs and stuff, you're just never going to get a rhythm. You're never going to get on top of Max when you're facing that.
No, that's true. I mean, Dan is phenomenal talent. I mean, I think he's the best on the brakes in Formula One. And there's guys who can brake deep, but he brakes deep, and he doesn't lock up the tires, and he's opportunistic.
Yeah.
And he gets it in there. Max will give you the elbow and bump into you as he's going by you. Danny won't even give you a chance to do that when you're given half a chance. So it was an interesting decision. I think a turning point for those guys was at Baku with the contact. We don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I think a lot of conversations happened around that subject that Dan could see. What was going on within the team. It's hard to ignore Max Verstappen. I think he had a great second half of the season as well, and he's starting to put it all together. Yeah. Also, he's getting a case of the Hamiltons where he's not forcing things a little bit and maybe being a bit more consistent. He's very confident, that's for sure. But Dan's very confident. He's an amazing passer, amazing braker because of that,
right?
Or vice versa, should I say? So where does Dan do? What does he do? Where does he go? The reliability was, a shame. It was nothing, no conspiracies. Max had the same thing last season, if you remember. He was very frustrated with a lot of the DNFs, and Dan got his share this year, unfortunately. And weird and wacky that it's most of it laid on Renault's table,
right?
And that's exactly where he's going. But he's, sometimes you have to go down a couple of steps to come back stronger. So he's laying his eggs in the Renault basket.
If it pans out, he may find himself it was a brilliant move.
Yeah, we may.
Yeah,
right.
You never know.
It certainly has. Renault has the history and the capacity to build itself up to certainly Red Bull standards. Yeah. Certainly as a big factory effort that should be able to fight Mercedes and Ferrari if they get all their sums right. So maybe that's where Dan's seeing. He didn't see, the infighting between him and Max would be in a negative, and he wants to be the leader of a team, and that was never going to happen.
Right.
A Red Bull. And if he can be the guy that pulls it up and starts scoring podiums and occasional wins for Renault, and that will then build that program into something very strong. We've seen it before. Renault have beaten Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes into World Championship status, and they can probably do it again because they've got the resources to do it.
Yeah, 05 and 06. Mm-hmm. From my perspective on Max, I think regardless of what you think of Max Verstappen, this is a race winner and a title contender by any measure. And I think the 2018 season was perhaps one of the most important seasons in his career. It was the year he made contact, so to speak, contact with the inner Max, the champion to be, if you will, the young phenom, who finally tamed his wild, red mist-fueled racecraft. And I think he'll look back on the summer break of 2018 as the year he finally got it. Much to his competition's bewilderment.
Yeah, I mean, Peter's asking, who's that Max had a bit Maldonado in him in 2017. So what changed for 2018? And obviously, time over the winter, you have to go back and reflect on your season. And we hear the rants and raves at the moment. Who was made the mistake and why this guy knocked my wing off and this and that. But after the season, you calm down, you get a bit more clearer vision, and you analyze yourself, and you can make changes. That's what you have to do as an athlete every time. You don't just lock yourself in to say I'm the best thing that ever was, and everyone else is around me just has to get out of my way. You have to analyze yourself and become a better person, be the best Max Verstappen you can be. And then if you remember also that at one point, was it this season that Christian sent all of his entourage away and made him show. I think it was Baku, maybe.
Was it?
I can't remember what track he came to. Maybe you guys can figure it out, remember it. But one time they said, get away with all the noise, all the people. Even Jos wasn't invited. Max, you just show up and you were going to be a part of this team without any distractions.
Yeah, I don't know if that was.
And you're going to be a big boy.
Yeah.
And I think that actually helped Max also start to mature and become, his own man. You don't need your entourage around you.
No.
When you're out there on a race car. And I think taking that away from him, where maybe he wouldn't have chosen that,
right,
gave him a thought in his head that, okay, I've got to do it all on my own. I don't have anyone to talk to, and he benefited from it.
Yeah.
Gives him confidence.
Minnie says he didn't tame blank. He's still the he has always been old Minnie. That's so mean of you.
Yeah, I think he did.
You're such a nice guy on the website, and here you come in here.
I think he tamed it. It didn't go by much, but it didn't take much.
I didn't say it was gone. I'm just saying he tamed it. So. Let's see. Oh, who we're going to talk about next? Why, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to throw this up. We're going to talk about Renault.
Oh, hey, nice.
Isn't that nice? Look at that. Renault. I got to get my fingers.
Renault. That's the old logo, or is that the new logo?
That's the old one.
Okay.
No, Renault Sport Formula. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, all these name changes. I think that's Racing Point Renault Sport Formula One team, I think.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. Renault, 122 points. Nico Hülkenberg, Carlos Sainz. The points break down as such. 69 to 53 in favor of Nico. Qualifying 13 to 8 in favor of Nico. Hülkenberg had a solid year and some reliability issues that prevented him from an even better year in my mind. But there was also something, Paul, that seems to hang, if not sometimes silently, over his head, and that's a series of unforced errors that still linger in the crevices of his racecraft, and one wonders if this is one facet of his career that's kept him out of a top ride. Regardless, Nico was the main man at Renault and has delivered quite a lot to that team since joining Renault and helped them finish strong as best of the rest, and I think had a great year. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's those moments, like, it just in Japan, and it's just these like brain fades.
Driving into the wall.
Driving into the wall, yeah. And it just, there's these moments in his, I mean, it can happen to anyone, but at the top level, it usually doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it happened to Seb at Hockenheim, but it was raining, changing conditions. I don't know. I'm just curious, because every once in a while we'll see this, and you and I were thinking, I don't know what was going on.
Yeah,
there.
There's a glitch.
Yeah, there's a glitch.
There's a glitch in Hülkenberg. Yeah. And it may come from the frustration of not getting that top ride, I mean, it's tough to be fighting your way in the mid-pack every single year without the success to really boost your ego and confidence.
Right.
I think his results versus Carlos Sainz were pretty impressive, honestly. I mean, 13 to 8. What did we have? What was Hamilton and Valtteri? What was that, 15 to 6 or something?
Oh, Valtteri?
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me, Paul. Here, let me go back.
Where's Huxley when you need him?
15 to 6.
Yeah. Yes. Huxley's playing on the swings in the garden.
He is.
He's really not paying attention.
He's not. He's sunning out there.
Anyway, but so Hülkenberg, it's he had this trajectory that he could have been, and as we know, even Alonso can't get a ride in the top ride, and sometimes those seats just don't open up for you, and they haven't. But he's a solid driver, and I think, as I said, the results versus Carlos Sainz are pretty impressive, because I rate Carlos Sainz as a pretty darn fast driver, and I think Sainz just didn't quite put his season together this year, and I think Hülkenberg was there to pounce and take a lot of the advantage from that, and assert himself as the number one on the team, which obviously kept him on for another year, and Sainz decided to jump ship.
Well, I wrote some notes about Carlos.
Did you?
I did.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I expected too much from Carlos, or if he delivered, but Nico is actually much better than I'm giving credit for. But either way, Carlos had a tough year, and we did not see the guy we saw take that seat late in the 2017 season and wring its neck. I wonder if his contractual obligations in future were weighing on him, and if so, perhaps at McLaren we'll see the real Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to Renault for those last, 2 or 3 races in 2017, I was like, whoa, Nico, that's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Because the way he drove in Brazil and everything, I was like, wow, this is going to be really a great year. Never manifested. I don't know why.
He didn't build on that.
No, and he was on loan from Red Bull, and I was thinking, well, maybe those obligations and being unsure of his season and where he's going to go, maybe that's weighing on him, and who knows? But
I don't know. For sure, it was very impressive that he jumped into a car that he didn't know and did as well as he did.
Right,
and that would have wake up call for Hülkenberg, obviously, because it's not just. You're just jumping a different color car. I mean, everything is different.
Right.
How the team works, how you work with your engineer, what hotel you're staying at.
Yeah, right.
You got to read the 500-page manual on how to start the car. And all the buttons and everything are different. That's something you're not just going to learn over a weekend before you get in the right. But he grabbed the car by the scruff of the neck, which he did well. And I can't say what he did. Or why he fell off, why his pace wasn't consistent. He obviously had a good race at the last race of the year, right?
He did.
In Brazil. Maybe there's something going on in there that he had to figure out. These are all things that, as an athlete, you go through. There's dips in your season. There's dips in your talent. There's something distracting you. There's something you're not quite getting. There's a dynamic in the team. There's someone you're not getting on with,
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
The laces together every time you get up from an engineering meeting. It just grates on you so much. You get so frustrated. But Carlos Sainz is going to have a whole different job next year in moving to a bigger team, technically, not necessarily a faster car.
A worse team.
But definitely a lot of stuff. No, definitely not a worse team. Definitely
it's supposed to be
bigger shoulders to lie on, on him. But
right.
So hopefully we see the Carlos Sainz that we've seen images of and splashes of over his career so far.
Yeah. Who are we talking about? I'm lost in my. Oh, I see who we're talking about. Looky here. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that up. How about that?
There we go.
Huh? Haas is who we're talking about. Haas 93. Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. Here's how the points break down: 37-56 in favor of Magnussen. Qualifying, however, now hold your horses before you start coming down on Romain, who's a prodigious talent. Qualifying is 11-8 in favor of Romain. Huh? How about that?
Okay.
So,
but if he crashes on the first lap every time, the first lap bladder, he's not going to score any points.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
No, let's not do that.
Let's not talk about that. Peter, I think Hülkenberg's at Renault until they find somebody because Ricciardo now is going to be the guy, and until they can find a young driver to develop. That's my thinking.
Yeah, and I don't know how their development program is compared to some of the other teams. I don't know who they support. I know Tom Firth probably has it.
Yeah, Tom's got it right here in his back pocket.
Figure it out for us, Tom. Who's next in line at the Renault
cards?
Yeah, he is. It's like, you idiots.
You guys are so stupid. Why do I hang out with you guys? Okay, so Haas will be only one of 2 teams next year with the same lineup. Only 2 teams.
Yeah.
And you know who the other team was. And I think these 2 are working together fine, but I'm curious if Haas feels either driver left too much on the table in 2018, and if so, why they may not have made a change. Kevin Magnussen, in my mind, drove well this year and had a few moments and altercations that he would do well to avoid in the future, because it just takes away from what I believe is actually a real talent, even if part of that is pissing off his peers. He delivered the points and did more to help secure the constructor's position of 5th than his teammate did, and that's the key to staying at Haas in my mind. So he had less altercations this year. than the previous
Roman
year.
did?
No, Magnussen.
Oh, Magnussen, yes.
Yeah, talking about Magnussen.
Okay.
So, Kevin Magnussen, Paul, chin stroking time. Talk us through it.
Talk us through Kevin Magnussen. As we say, the pikey of Formula One. It's one of my favourite things to say.
Right.
Yeah. You don't want him behind you when you're standing in the group photos. You know, he'll do some stuff. You know, he'll grab you. You know,
right.
That's why Massa's always so puckered up every time. But anyway, Magnussen's. I mean, he's a fast driver, right? He's abrasive to most of the other people on the grid. I don't think he cares to be friends with anyone else on the grid. Yeah. But you know, Haas is a team. They did a fantastic job. They jumped 3 spots in the Constructors Championship, something like that.
Yep.
You know, I think the opportunity was lost where that maybe they could have been beaten Renault.
I think so.
You know,
in Austin,
because there was a series of races where Roman wasn't scoring points for a very long time. He managed to make it a bit more honest down by the end, but I think Roman threw a lot of points away for that team. And I think Magnussen probably made less errors than Roman and probably nearly maximized his effort, but Roman did not. Right. And I think that kind of let the team down, but the team did so well as a collective unit that they managed to still jump those points in the Constructors' Championship, thanks to Force India also backing down a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the Haas team with how they came to Formula One and their strategy with the parts situation with Ferrari, etc. I think I don't know why people keep criticizing it because it works.
Right.
I mean, why wouldn't you want a team that can come to Formula One and actually be competitive? Why do we want teams to be 5 seconds off the pace because they have to build every nut and bolt that they can? I think it's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, I do too.
And as we've seen, this thing evolves. So now, you know, Haas. That's great to get them off to a roaring start, but now they're taking on more of their own development internally, where they'll eventually evolve into more like what the traditional Formula One teams you're going to see, because they want to beat Ferrari as well as everybody else. They're not going to do it by doing the same thing, so they need to look. That's what the parts program has actually bought them, the time to be competitive. And work on their systems and work on what engineers can do what and what their strengths are. And this year, it seems like they tackled that a bit more from their own side rather than just relying on Ferrari handing them the plans and say, go racing, enjoy, let us know at the end of the year how you do, make sure your check doesn't bounce. And I think that's what they gain from it. They're building on the parts program.
And Gunther said that it doesn't do him any good just to have no hope of doing better each year, just to think, well, this year I'm going to go and be 5th in the championship again. That's not why they're there.
No. So he's frustrated. We saw obviously the frustration with the money situation where Racing Point Force India were able to keep rolling with their money, where he came in and basically I think the 3rd year they start getting the money. So is that next year or is that this year?
I think it was this year.
This year they started getting some money, and maybe that helped them with being able to actually fund their development, because I'm pretty sure Haas is saying this is our budget for the year, and you have to make do with what you get. He's not just keep throwing money at it, but benefiting from money from Formula One enables them to start building on their programs, etc. So Tom found out Markelov is, I guess, the next in line, the Renault program.
Right. That's right.
But as Tom said, I'm not sure he's actually going to get that chance. He's showed some real good signs of speed, but maybe not. Now he's nearly been there too long. Yeah, right. And some other guys have come in and beaten him and moved on, as we saw with Russell and with the guy at McLaren, Lance. Right.
I guess it's
Norris. Yeah.
It's not going to be the American kid, is it?
No, it's not going to be. No.
Who was the kid?
The name that cannot be named.
Yeah. The kid that wrecked his Indian teammate or whatever that was. I don't know.
Yeah, that was bad. Surreal. Well, now Pietro Fittipaldi is in that role.
Right. For Haas.
For Haas.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
I think Pietro he's a obviously he's a friend of ours. I know him fairly well, and I'm really happy to see him in that program with Haas, and I think he could threaten Grosjean for that seat once they get his program rolling. So watch out.
Speaking of Roma, he battles. He has battled his demons his entire F1 career, and a couple of seasons ago I thought he'd put that behind him, but this year he seemed to find these peaks and valleys, for his performance. Just he was there, looked good, on pace, great qualifying, and then other times he would just, he's just out to lunch. I mean, he was nowhere. And I guess it's that inconsistency that has me curious about how that team would look back on 2018 and feel about the balance of the points, because where it all went wrong was Austin. I think when they entered Austin, they were 10 points or less behind Renault for fourth and best of the rest. And that's where it was. Right. And then both cars were nowhere to be seen in Austin.
Yeah, they struggled massively. They were horrendous there.
Yeah, it was terrible. And that's where...
Wasn't that where Roman ran into somebody as well in the first lap anyway?
No, that's uncharacteristic.
Leclerc.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So anyway, that's where you got to be thinking, if you're Gene Theory, you're looking back and saying, need that consistency, Got it.
I'm surprised Roman stayed around. I mean, I
am too.
I think he did just enough at the right time when they were contemplating replacing him.
Right.
That he kept his job. But I think before and after, if he'd had that spate right then, he would have been out of there. And as I said, Haas didn't really have a good number 3 to replace him with.
Right.
But I think with Fittipaldi, they probably do. So we'll see how that goes for Roman. It's a show. I actually love the guy.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he's a character, man. It's great to have him on the grid, but man, sometimes you're like, no.
Now we're going to talk about this team. Have you ever heard of them?
Rings a bell.
We're talking about McLaren with the whopping 62 points. Fernando Alonso, Stoffel Vandoorne. Points breakdown as this: 50-12 in favor. 50, Paul, to 12 in favor of Alonso. Qualifying.
Career-ending qualifying stat coming up. We need this in a big. Can you do that? You can't do that,
I can't. No. I need to put that up there. Yeah. I can't.
That's painful. Painful for any driver to ever see anytime, anywhere.
It's 21-0.
Yeah.
That's not good. Fernando, for me, Paul, once again delivered an Oscar-winning performance that the car simply couldn't keep up with. Quite a situation to have a driver so comprehensively better than the car, and it's no wonder he lost his appetite for F1 given the circumstances, and it pains me to see him leave the sport, and it's yet another painful exposing fact that F1's lack of competitive performance between teams is a sad situation, because there's no other team for him to be competitive at.
Right.
From Red Bull, Renault, all the way down. Forget it. He's just not going to be competitive. And even if he brought a half a second, just by racecraft alone, well, tough. Because Mercedes is a second. Yeah, Mercedes is a second quicker than everybody else. So it's pointless, right? Yeah. And I can see why he said, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, because, there wasn't... The future wasn't any brighter, if at all. It'd already been through that scenario before.
Yep.
With the car for this year, it was a key point for McLaren to pull a car out that could actually be competitive, because they couldn't lean on the Honda excuse anymore. And obviously, as we saw and found out, that they had some technical issues with data transfer and with the aero. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. When they did, it was too late. And in the meantime, Alonso's already contemplating his departure.
Right.
We found out, and maybe some of you guys know that there was an imbalance in the rear, an inconsistency in the rear aero, and so they had to actually put more wing in the car to make sure to take that imbalance. But that led to a car that was draggy, not because the inherent design of the car was draggy, is that they had to run so much downforce to mask the problem they had with the inconsistency, that the car ended up, just being a sled in the straight. And that's why we saw, and I took when I was doing the Russia, Russia Grand Prix. I really noticed it.
How
lazy the car was. They weren't. I was like, why are they not going fast? Because Alonso's not struggling with the car in the corners because it had so much aero in it. You're not going to struggle. The car would go where it wanted to go. It would just do it slowly. And because I called it lazy, you just saw the impact. I'm like, I don't even see what there was no big corrections or anything like that. But once again, it was because they had to run so much wing in the car to counteract that the car was slow on the straight and wasn't that much faster in the corners to make up for it. And amazing that they jumped that far in the Constructors' Championship because I think they also jumped 3 spots in the Constructors' Championship, all due to Fernando Alonso scoring those points early on in the year when the development of the other cars and teams went by them. But at the beginning, that wasn't actually true, even though they were still having to run a bit more wing. Those other cars hadn't developed enough to jump past them. So everything that Fernando did at the beginning of the year was phenomenal, and how many points he racked up. I mean, he was in I think he was best of the rest out of the top 6 for quite a long time. In the driver standings, driving what ended up being the slowest car on the track. I mean, we were talking about earlier about would Leclerc show himself up if Sauber was a sled? Well, Alonso showed himself, and the McLaren was a sled. And that's what good drivers do. They find ways of muscling their way in. Obviously, Alonso has a lot of experience in being able to read a race as well as drive a race car very fast. And I think they all came into play right there in scoring those points. And I said, the first half of the season, he racked them up. Second half of the season, he still couldn't get anywhere very far and get any more. Unfortunately, that's why he slipped down the standings pretty quickly at the last few races of the year.
Right. I was trying to remember. Tom, you can bail me out again, Tom. I'm trying to remember the last... Paul left.
Yeah, I've had enough.
I guess we're done with the podcast. Okay.
I'm too upset about the Alonso situation and McLaren to even... I got to leave. Talk amongst yourselves once the McLaren talk's over.
Okay, let's just get our stuff and go. Done. So Tom can bail me out on this. I was trying to think earlier today of the last team that showed up, realized somewhere in the first, half dozen races or, whatever it is, 10 races or whatever, realized some intrinsic major issue with the chassis and built a new one during the season. Mm-hmm. I remember McLaren having that stillborn car that never raced. I don't remember if it was the 14, the 17, I don't remember, but they showed it and it never raced. But then they fell back and made a B-spec of the previous year's chassis, and I can't remember the last team that wholesale built a new chassis.
Because their first chassis was so bad?
Yeah. I was trying to remember that. And it seems like something McLaren would have done, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's just... sorry. It's me eyes.
Just throw it back to Tom.
Yeah, just throw everything this
to Tom.
He loves this stuff,
man.
I tell you, Huxley and Atticus better watch out or Tom's going to take their job. Let's talk... Okay,
you didn't want to talk about the stuff?
Oh, yeah, we are going to talk about the stuff. Here's what I said about the stuff.
Yes, let's hear it.
I put Van Dorn as a bit of an enigma for me, and I feel like he has unfinished business in F1. No one wants to be measured against Alonso, and clearly, when measured, he's lacking in just about every category. But how did a guy who did so well in F2 fall so far at McLaren? I believe an in and out of F1 at one team is a sad situation, and I think if he were in a different team, under different management, different perspective, I actually think he would do pretty well. I don't know. And the last one of the podcasts I was on with you, I said, well, Paul, maybe this is one of those cases where you talk about certain drivers who are crap in F2, but they come like Mansell, who come to F1 and just,
the car just suits their style, and sometimes,
and sometimes the reverse could happen.
The lower formula, they don't have as much power, they don't have braking, maybe it's more momentum cars, maybe one driver style fits that, but then they get to the next step and their skill level just doesn't apply to that car.
Right.
But Stoffel was phenomenal talent. I mean, he was in F2 and in Super Formula. I mean, he went back. Yeah. And that isn't an easy series to run in. No. I know people think it's just a Japanese series and there's just a bunch of Japanese drivers down there, but that's pretty serious stuff. And he not easy to win in, and he managed to do that as well. So I don't know. It didn't seem like Alonso was playing head games with Stoffel, so I can't say Alonso was just kind of doing all the political moves to try and keep Stoffel down. I think Stoffel just didn't thrive in that environment at all, and it was a surprise. I was excited about Stoffel as I am about Charles Leclerc at the point, but when he got there, he's in. It may be the essence of that car. It's a lazy car, and Stoffel needs a car to drive on the edge to really show it all, but 21-0 doesn't lie. Yeah. Even if the car isn't suited to him, this Stoffel should have been able to pull something out. Just luck alone. Yeah. You know? I mean,
and it wasn't until the last, was it Abu Dhabi or something, he had a great race.
He did. He had a great race in the last race. And maybe once again, looking back to that point that you made about, once he knew he was on his way out, maybe he was able to relax a little bit,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I can't speak to. I can't even think of an excuse as to why Stoffel didn't show what obvious talent he's had through the years, and it not show up at that car, rather than the car was, somehow, maybe it just speaks to more how great Alonso is.
Yeah, it could. All right, enough about that. Talk about that.
And Tom said he filled out. Let's move down there. He said that Williams came out with a new nose, and Force India came out with a new nose, and halfway through a season, etc. Actually, Force India came out with a whole new car halfway through a season, but that was on purpose.
That was on purpose.
Yeah, and they wanted to actually do that for this year. They actually planned to have their Force India car the same chassis basically for this year, but because of the rule changes, it became
they couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it. So.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about Force India, Paul. I think that was great. Yeah. We're going to talk about Force India. 52 points on the season. Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon. The points break down this way: 62-49 in favor of Perez. Qualifying, however, 5-16. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. As interesting as that is, Paul, let me say this about that.
Okay.
I feel bad for Sergio Perez, who was mired in that team financial collapse while trying to keep his career in racing alive. That can't have been easy, and yet he was the one who delivered the points, even though he was dealing with things that Esteban didn't have to worry about as a Mercedes driver. Esteban's he's a Mercedes guy.
Right.
Not worried about his future, whatever, with the team. It's not the case with Perez. No. I mean, he's got to keep this thing going.
Every year he does.
Every year. Yeah. And so Esteban didn't have the pressure that Perez had, and I think Perez handled himself incredibly well during that whole legal thing when it was him that kind of put the, started, it was the catalyst, right? Sergio was solid despite the clashes with his wily teammate. He was consistently scoring points and helped bring the team back from 0 points. He's quick, and the 2018 season proved once again that he's a driver the team can rely on, and many have accused him of sinking the team through the litigation efforts, which I felt was unfair, given to the fact that he wasn't getting paychecks.
Yeah.
Right? So it's crazy.
So someone said the logo's wrong, so I decided I'd make up my own Racing Point logo. I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to use next year.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's about right.
We got an advanced copy on a napkin, no less. Racing Point, yeah.
They're going to change the name again, too.
They are going to change it again.
I guess they're going to launch the new name at the Canadian Auto Show in February. And the new livery.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah. You know who'll be there.
I want it now! What's the matter with those twats down there?
That's who's going to be there.
Yes, he will. Lots of Oompa Loompas. We need more Oompa Loompas and a touch of cowbell.
Does that make Otmar the lead Oompa Loompa?
I think so. It could be.
He is. Yeah. Okay. So, Racing Point.
He's a little round like them.
Yeah, so he's a little round Oompa Loompa. He's the man Oompa Loompa, and then the team is Oompa
He's the one with the board.
He's the one with the board, right? Who's testing the chocolate.
Yeah. Not the one that falls in. That was
no. That wasn't good. No. That was death in the afternoon. Okay, so that was Sergio. So tough year for Sergio. Talk to it, Paul.
Yeah, it is a tough.
Go.
It's really disparaging stats there, right?
Yeah. Certainly, Perez doing all the heavy lifting when it matters on points, but qualifying couldn't beat Esteban.
Yes. Perez got it done in the racing, got the points on the board, and obviously those guys not the best buddies in the world. So probably a tough seasonal round for them, gelling together. The team just not necessarily making it to the next race. The whole, what a nightmare. But how did this came out of the, I think you even should be called Phoenix team, came out of the ashes.
I know.
You thought it was done, and they came out and they scored so many points that they jumped themselves up to that position in the Constructors' Championship, which is phenomenal. They actually didn't look that great at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We were saying, where is the Force India from 2017? And they didn't show their strengths there till 4 or 5 races in, I think.
Yeah.
And then they managed to really start, definitely not necessarily showing themselves as the sharpest end of the mid-pack teams, but they just kept scoring points, and they have 2 good drivers that could get it in the points every time. So,
they lost all their points and still finished this high.
Yeah, which is, just says something about that team still punching above their weight. But Force India or whatever it's going to be is going to be a whole different team next year, run by different people and whole different circumstances. And I'm not sure that it can keep that consistency, because Force India have been doing this for a while, but now they're changing all the people in the team.
No Bob Fernley.
Bob Fernley, and he was leading the charge, and you've got the Canadians coming in, wanting things done the way they want to do it. The dynamic in the team is going to be completely different. Whether it can be as successful, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. I know Lance had a good test, but I feel somehow, they ran it on light fuel with the stickiest tyres to make sure Lance was happy and was in the top 3 in his testing sessions. But we'll see.
Yeah. So I think I wrote down things on Esteban. I did.
You did? Yeah, it's right in front of you.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're looking out there. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to look at any questions and comments. Richard, I think, talks about Lotus in 81. They used it in the first 3 races, banned, and they had to build a new car. Thanks. Paul? Not you.
No, obviously
Paul?
not me.
No, you didn't know that.
I didn't know that, no.
Although you were probably at that race.
Probably was, yeah.
Okay, Esteban had a good year, and despite his clashes with teammate, I think he delivered equally to the team's success and results. Esteban may have watched the legal issues swirl around his teammate, feeling he had nothing to worry about, but in the end, Sergio has a ride and Esteban doesn't for 2019. I think there's a bit of irony there. Sad irony, of course, because Esteban should be Sergio's teammate next year. His pace is clear, his racecraft improved this year. He's had several very measured drives, delivering basically life-saving points for this team. He was quicker over 1 lap and finished nose-to-tail with his teammate, sometimes ahead of his teammate, sometimes behind, but they were actually, barring the clashes, a great combo, which you mentioned. They both were delivering points nose-to-tail.
Yeah, they're both very close in performance, I think.
Yeah, right.
And that's why those guys ran nose-to-tail all the time.
Right.
But Ocon's maybe got more potential.
Yeah, right.
He's younger. He's a battler with Max. He's there for longer. So I think Mercedes under themselves sees a lot more potential. Perez, he fights hard to keep his ride going, and he does win on the track. And he's like he doesn't throw away opportunities very often.
No,
gets very frustrated. We saw it even when he went to McLaren.
We did.
He wasn't gonna pay witness, as one of your favourite sayings, to Jenson Button either.
No, he wasn't.
And definitely not to Esteban. And that was something where those guys clashed. But I think both of them have had the opportunity with the car that they put out to really show what they can do. And Esteban may not have scored as many points, but definitely I don't think his the opinion of him in the paddock has been any lessened by that point. I mean, you see when he does get the chance, he'll fight to the end. Obviously, we saw the issue at Brazil. Maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. Threw away some points there, and that's one of the things that he's learning as well. And maybe as we talked about Max and some other people reflecting on their season once everything's calmed down a little bit, I think Ocon maybe will learn a little bit about the Max deal. Doesn't matter if you're right.
That's not important.
It's a matter of fighting your battles when they should be fighting. And he threw away points at Brazil by fighting with the leader of the
for no reason.
Yeah,
really.
for no real reason. It was inevitable, really, that Max was going to beat him in the race. So just tow along. But these are the little things. These are little building blocks, little tools in your toolbox that you put in, and even subconsciously you don't make that decision again next time. Right.
I was looking at questions, Alejandros. I have not read what Racing Point, what their budget is for 2019. I haven't read anything about that. And let's see, John.
It'd be interesting to know actually if they keep the same sponsor. Oh no, we didn't talk about Haas's new sponsor. Actually, someone asked that question.
Let's talk about it. Well, I think Force India, it will be interesting. Is it BWP? Mm-hmm. Right.
BWT. Yeah. Isn't it?
Whatever.
It's
Racing Point.
But whatever the team is going to be. Yeah.
So, and then there was the Haas was Rich Energy,
right?
Which I'd never heard of.
No,
I'd never seen it. I've never tasted it. No idea.
And we know that Tom Firth has not either.
No, I know. Tom and I talked about it, and Tom was like, "Yeah, I remember seeing it in a chiller, in a store, but it's not like a prolific brand." So I'm a little concerned about that as well.
A little concerned. We don't know how legitimate they are as the answer to that, and we are a little questionable about it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I have to take this picture off, Paul, because I have to put this picture on.
Yes.
Talking about Sauber, as Grace would call it, Sauber. Let's talk about Sauber. 48 points. Marcus Ericsson and Charles Leclerc. Points break down this 9-39 in favor of Leclerc.
Yes, as we say.
Qualifying breaks down thus.
Ericsson was your man always, so Leclerc had to be mine this year. I didn't even.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, I didn't even push it. It was so apparent.
Yeah, so apparent. Everyone knew.
Yeah, I didn't even want to make you feel bad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Qualifying 4-17 in favor of Leclerc. Leclerc's lap in Q2 of Brazil to get into the top 10 in worsening condition was a high water mark for me. That was great. For me, his consistent lingering in Q2 as well as Q3 and the results he was able to produce in a car that had little interest in being that far up the grid was a clear indication that this man is definitely ready for a faster car. I just think he had a fantastic season. I will agree with you. I think going to Ferrari is going to be good. We talked about it before. The pressure that comes with being at Ferrari is immense. A commercial pressure, sponsor pressure, just the history that you've got to carry on your shoulders. You've seen it when Michael was there. You saw it with Barrichello. You saw it with Massa. Saw it with Kimi. Saw it with Alonso. And I would argue you're seeing a little bit of Sebastian.
Yeah.
Just carrying that weight. And I think he would tell you that it's an incredible weight. So we were concerned about Leclerc going this young to Ferrari, but even if they protect him, I think he'll do fine. But I do actually agree with you. I think it wouldn't have hurt to have another season leading Sauber even farther up the grid. Let Kimi and Sebastian stay at Ferrari one more season to give Sebastian another shot with a teammate who's willing to work with him. But that's all hindsight. Leclerc's moving to Ferrari. That's not what we're talking about. Talking about 2018 Sauber. The reversal of this team under Fred Vasseur has been astronomical. No doubt helped by Ferrari. No doubt helped by the engine and all of those things. But you got to be there to manage that, Paul.
Yeah.
And Leclerc and Sauber have done a fabulous job.
I mean, Williams have a Mercedes engine, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I mean, it was an amazing turnaround for the team that we kept making excuses and crossing our fingers for in the past. And was it all Charles Leclerc's doing? No, absolutely not. It was the team as a whole, just like the Force India team coming in as a whole and building a car and a package and maximizing that. Obviously, they got a lot more help from Ferrari. It was a great move for them not to, because they were going to be a Sauber Honda, if you remember, and that sounded like a fantastic idea. And when they said they weren't going to go with that, they were just going to kind of throw that Honda deal to the ground and then bring in Ferrari. I thought they were crazy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, why would you do that? Now you're just buying your lumps. But it seems like this team joining with Ferrari is a lot more in depth than just supplying them with engines. Obviously, the Alfa Romeo name coming in is important. Right. And Ferrari aren't just going to be, or Fiat aren't going to just be happy just putting Alfa Romeo on an engine label and say, well, you guys go have fun out there. There's a reason why there's the Alfa Romeo name on the car, and they want that team to be very, very successful. And they're going to do what they can to help them. We thought maybe the Haas team were going to be this number 2 team, but obviously maybe Ferrari can't dictate to Haas what they want to do as much as Ferrari would like them to. But definitely the Ferrari link to Sauber is very strong, and they have a lot of influence.
For years.
It has been there for years.
Yeah, it was. If you go back, I know they had BMW, and I get all that, but Sauber and Ferrari have a long relationship.
Yeah,
really
absolutely, and this is probably the best relationship they've had.
So. Yeah,
I think at some point, obviously Sauber then moved to the BMW thing, and that link was broken.
Yeah,
but and maybe half the people at the team aren't even in that. But I think it was a great decision by Ferrari, and they obviously saw the resources at Sauber as BMW did when they came on board, that they could actually do the job if they're given the resources, the funds, etc. And Ferrari, however they're helping them, maybe by saving them money, by giving them money, is really coming out, and they're doing the job that they've been asked to do by Alfa Romeo and from Ferrari. And I think Kimi's coming into the team. He's got to be happy about that. It gave a tool for Charles Leclerc to show everyone what he was capable of. But I would have liked Charles to stay another year, because and for not just for Charles's sake, but Ferrari's sake, is that they're obviously looking at Charles as part of the Ferrari ladder. They need this guy to be their leader in the future. So him getting a bit more, he's going to be second fiddle to Vettel, at least initially, unless something miraculous is happening. And I think if he had stayed the extra year, he would have gained that experience of being a leader in the team, and then he would carry that to Ferrari and make him a better leader earlier in his career once Vettel is out of the picture. Even make him a more formidable opponent to Vettel
when he got there.
And they say, you guys fight it out amongst yourselves, and go on. So I think it was, they obviously want that talent of Charles Leclerc in their team. They want to be successful. I'm not sure Ferrari make some of these decisions very well, as we've seen in some of the calls they make at the racetrack as well, to their benefit. And I'm not sure this is one, but we'll see. We'll see.
For Ericsson, decent year, and to be honest, I think it may have been one of his best seasons in F1, but that wasn't enough to keep him with the team, and that's a shame. Perhaps Marcus will flourish elsewhere, but there were times this season when his presence and performance were completely understandable, but the lack of consistency and consistently delivering those moments, like Leclerc did, is probably what cost him his ride. So it's unfortunate, but but we move on.
I think if Ericsson didn't have Charles Leclerc as a teammate, people would be like, "Oh, we've misjudged Marcus."
And he had a good year.
Yeah, he had a great year. He got some good points, and Marcus wasn't that far off of Charles, and he actually started for us realizing that the Sauber car was actually something better than we thought it would be. When you got that result in one of the early races, and he scored at 9th place, and it was like, wow, that's the best results had in a while. And Charles Leclerc just kind of built on that.
Built on it, right, exactly. All right, moving on. We got 2 more teams, Paul. We got to go through quickly because I'm running up on an hour and 21 minutes.
Holy moly.
I know. Here we go. Toro Rosso, 33 points. I am going to speak fast. 33 points. Brendan Hartley, Pierre Gasly. Points break down like this: 4-29 in favor of Gasly. Qualifying breaks down 6 of 13. I won't read my whole long soliloquy other than to say that I feel bad. I feel like Brendan Hartley got a raw deal. I admit that late last year he seemed average, but the amount of penalties he took. Keep in mind, he took a tremendous amount of penalties in this season because Honda was changing out parts, trying to develop this engine program for 2019. All right, so they didn't care about taking this. And I said at the beginning of the year, I said that Toro Rosso's mission now is to punish this Honda and build this Honda and become an R&D lab for when Red Bull comes to Honda in 2019. And I was right, but part of that was Brendan Hartley took a lot of engine penalties and put him in the back of the grid. I feel like he's... I don't know. I feel bad for him because I feel like that's the raw end of the deal. I thought he was very measured. I think his years behind the wheel is clearly evident, as well as his car feedback. I thought was terrific. That kind of contrasted when you compared it to Gasly's more emotional and harsh words from Gasly. But I think Brendan was an asset to the team. It's a shame to see him out of it. But I understand why he's not.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
It's a big boys game. And even if you are dealt those blows, you have to maximize the opportunities. He had an opportunity in Canada,
right,
where I think he qualified 6th.
Yeah, right.
And he was out in the first lap. That was something he could not afford to do. As I said, if you pick your moments, and you got to make it work, and he didn't. And so when he had a good opportunity, he didn't, and that's kind of what kind of set the death knell for his career, really. It was.
For Gasly, no doubt a quick driver and did really well this year with a great result in Bahrain, 4th, and a 6th in Hungary also with a great result. But there were times I felt that he got flustered and off his game when the car wasn't working well. He got all chippy on the radio and just couldn't get calm down and get his head around it, put his head down and get it done. And he seemed to be, I don't know, a little unedged by that. So I'm curious how he'll do as a replacement for Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Because, I don't consider the two on equal footing, if I'm honest. And a few weekends where Gasly was kind of out to lunch at Toro Rosso, I think.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I saw him at the USGP, obviously, and he was awful. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what happened to him, but we have seen sparks of good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So the jury's still out on Gasly.
Yeah, I agree.
But the opportunity arose not because Gasly forced his way into the Red Bull team. It's because Ricciardo left, and he was the next in line, basically.
Right. And this wasn't a Max being brought into Red Bull or Vettel being brought into Red Bull because it's the right move.
It wasn't that his skill was so much they couldn't ignore it and had to bring him in. He was just the next one in line because Ricciardo left. And
it was an Alguersuari or Buemi move.
Yeah, whether he's ready or not, I don't know. He can be very fast. He can race very good, but he's also a very unfinished work. Yeah. And to be alongside Max at Red Bull, I'm not... We'll have to see how that goes.
I'm not sure how that's
I'm not sure Honda will be the weakest link in that team next year. I don't know. We don't know. Yeah. But his experience with the Honda motor is going to help a lot. Yeah. But it seemed like the Honda guys seemed to talk more about Hartley than they did about Gasly, which I thought intriguing about how he helped develop and help with the team.
Well, I think his car feedback and everything, all the years in WEC,
right?
I mean,
he has a lot of knowledge, and he worked for a lot of top manufacturers, and I think comparing Hartley and Gasly, I think they appreciated, even though he may have been the whipping boy, and maybe rightfully so for the big picture of Honda and Red Bull. Yeah, maybe. But I'm not sure. I think Gasly got a fairer shake than maybe he should have. Yeah. And he's obviously got a big opportunity there. So it's time to put up or shut up.
We'll see. Now, here's your team, Paul.
My team? I thought I already had my team.
We did have
a team. Yeah. I don't have a team. Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows that. You're a driver guy. All right, Williams, 7 points. Lance Stroll, Sergei Sirotkin. Points breakdown is this. 6-1 in favor of Lance. Qualifying breaks down to this. 8-12 in favor of Sirotkin.
Yeah, Sergei.
So here's my point. Very tough year for Williams, and it leads me to once again suggest a serious management shakeup and an entirely new look to the car, the team, the race strategy, beyond just keeping the ink black, selling assets to Mercedes for free engines, and turning a slight profit in order to make payroll. There, I said it.
Yes, you did. And that may be a key point right
That's
there.
right, I said it.
Yeah.
What are you going to, that's what's going on. And it's unfortunate, but you got to think beyond that. It's difficult for me to assess either driver given the car's penchant for digging its heels in at every race, but I'll go out on a limb and suggest that Racing Point Force India hired the wrong driver. Because if you were looking for a Williams driver...
We're saying about hired.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, I guess, we're saying hired.
I want it now! What's the matter with those twats down there?
Take over right now.
Yeah. It's my nephew. If you were going to pick one, I would have picked Sergey. I think he's much more mentally and professionally balanced, less entitled, and I like his team spirit. I think he did a decent job in 2008, although, yes, he did have a couple of rookie moments that had you scratching your head. But the fact is that no matter how bad it got there, and folks, it was an absolute comprehensive poop sandwich, regardless of that, Sergey was actually positive. He was trying to find the positive. He was trying to build on that positive, be a team player, and what you got with Lance was a bunch of crass comments, and this team sucks, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. When can I get out of this
When can I get out of this?
Daddy just bought me a new team. Can't I leave now? Yes.
Yep, and I remember the weekend it happened because Lance goes hopping over, and he was so giddy in the pit lane, and you were like, dude, you're like absolutely mired in the poop, and you're acting like you're on cloud nine. And that was, he knew his dad bought a team. So there you go. Anything to add?
No, I think we'll have plenty to add about Lance Stroll later. But Sergey, he was the bright spot for Williams, in my opinion. His attitude, at least.
His attitude, yeah.
The Williams car actually had more flaws than the McLaren car, it seems. So, wow, that's all I can say.
Yeah. Oh. What happened, Peter? Oh, yeah, there was a U-Haul over there. Peter, Key and I.
Oh, that's what happened. You're moving. Todd needs help moving. And he brought me in this whole ruse of a podcast.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to need you to get this couch, and then I'm going to... No, I'm not moving. Yeah. Key and I, Peter noticed a U-Haul go by in the back. So
we'll have to send them a bill for the sponsorship.
I think that was all of Lance Stroll's kit that they were moving.
His ego.
Okay, so we're going to do some awards, Paul. We got to give out an award. I got to turn this. Got to turn that off.
Where's the award emoji?
I don't have an award graphic, but I do have something to play. I got to find
Who
it.
suffered
Paul.
more, Williams or McLaren's fans? I would say the Williams fans. I'm not sure how many there are left, but they've been suffering for longer.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything new for them. I think the McLaren fans had a lot of hope and didn't come to fruition. Right. So I'd say McLaren fans were lifted up, and then they were let down a bit more.
See, Paul can't hear these fun clips. He gets to finally see my soundboard, though.
I do. It's amazing.
Gigi says, "Speak about Claire." Say some stuff about Claire. So, Paul, I think Claire's a wonderful woman, and I like Claire. I think she's great. It's awesome. Her dad's awesome. That's great. Everything's great. It's just that you're at the back of the grid, and I think just like Sauber for too long. And I think just like Sauber, you had Monisha, and it was great. Monisha's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure she is. I'm sure she's a delightful person to know. I got no issues, but it was going down the drain, and they made the change. They brought in Fred Vasseur. Fred put the brakes on the whole death spiral going down the drain, brought in Ferrari, reversed the fortune of that team. That team's going to start making some money, which is the lifeblood based on the points, start working with Ferrari, which is now an infusion of capital. I think Williams has to do something similar. I think Williams has to bring in a complete management restructure.
They need Ross Brawn.
They need Ross.
Yeah, no, they do need something. We obviously we don't know the day-to-day goings on with her, but as in any sports team, you got to look at the top and we'll bleed it down, and something needs to change. So,
right.
The structure isn't changing quick enough, and the performance is going downhill. So something needs to be changed. She's probably there longer than anyone normally would be because of her last name.
Yep.
And whether it's her fault or not, someone needs to come in there and figure out what is wrong. She's not figuring it out.
She's not figuring it out. Let's see. What else? I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna give away some awards. I'm gonna do our mailbag next week, Paul.
Yeah, good idea.
Since we're doing questions live. So
yeah.
Richard Wiseman though had a great question, and so did Dave from Chicago. Hey, Dave from Chicago. I'll get to those next week. All right. So we do have to do some awards. The first one, Paul, is Pass of 2018. Music's done, Paul. All right, so the music's done, Paul. You can talk now. Pass. So I put this as passing of 2018 because it's very difficult for me to pick one.
Because it was so much passing.
Prolific passing in 2018.
3,000 million
DRS
my gosh.
pass. Thanks to that Pirelli rubber, we had so much passing. It was, I couldn't even count them. I will say that I did like the Ricciardo on Valtteri China. I thought that was a really good one.
Impressive.
Very impressive.
What I like is that people know how impressive it was.
Yes.
Because it shows how intelligent and experienced the fans are.
That's right.
That how good that pass was. Because there was a lot of banging going on with Max too, but that was a good one.
Then we're going to give you these. These two droids. Both are hardworking and will serve you well. I thought you were doing the Kimi thing. So anyway.
I'm not going to kiss you.
No, don't do that. I thought some of the great passing of this year was Ricciardo for sure. I think Charles Leclerc had some fantastic.
He did. Unfortunately, we probably didn't see half of them.
Didn't see it. Do you remember the pass of Magnussen on the outside in Russia?
Oh,
around that corner.
He was the one that set the stage. And
he said it.
So someone then sent a message to Lewis.
Lewis was like, "Oh, you can do that there."
And Vettel was like, "What?
What?"
Yeah,
I know. So I thought Charles Leclerc had some great passing. I'm so excited to see that kid in the Ferrari. And then it goes without saying, Max Verstappen had some fabulous passes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, not all ending in wing damage, which was great.
Right. Not all of it.
Good move. But then I added Alonso to that because the guy just did an amazing job and just got, we probably didn't see most of the stuff he was doing, but for him to be where he was, I mean, we definitely, when we did see him, he's a feisty bugger. And,
he is a feisty bugger.
Even if you pass him, he's not necessarily not going to. I don't care if you're Lewis Hamilton or who you are. He's going to fight you to the death, to the corner.
I agree. All right, then we go to Donkey of the Season, right?
Ooh.
Playing music right now. The music's over, Paul. We can talk now. So, Paul, a Donkey of the Season. Well, I have a few you could focus on in 2018. I'll start with Van Dorn, and although I had a very throaty defensive Van Dorn, I still think getting
21-0. That's donkeyable.
Getting beat 21-0. Yeah. I know I say this and have been, but that literally is getting beat like a narc at a biker rally. That is just not good. So I said that Williams, I think.
Oh, obviously,
donkey of
don't
the
need
season.
to speak any more on that.
No, it can't be named.
No.
Also, Vettel in Germany. Pretty much threw that season away right there.
I think Vettel, overall in the season, not just Germany. Germany was a bright, a very dark point, but kind of reminiscent of what happened through the whole season. In my opinion,
I agree.
He should have been world champion this year because they had a car to do it. Yeah. And between him and the Ferrari team, who I also add to the donkey list, gave Hamilton the chance. Absolutely, Hamilton grabbed that chance by the antlers and ran with it, gave him the chance to win the championship, and he did it.
I think you'd also say that F1 TV was a donkey.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that was the massive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was horrendous.
Right.
And for them to then start changing things for the future already when they haven't even figured out how to run what they did come up with is scary in my mind.
And all their goofy Halo graphics and all that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm missing the plot. Just saying. Mexico and Singapore race for excessive tire wear.
Yeah. So you're not wearing Pirelli blaming the tracks or the countries.
I'm just saying the whole race. Mexico,
just in
Pirelli
general.
missed it. Yeah. I'm not blaming the countries.
The whole concept.
Just the concept
really,
I'm not. The Mexican fans are fabulous. The Mexican Grand Prix, same for Singapore. No, I'm saying that Pirelli and those races were just bad.
I missed that. Singapore was the only race I missed, and
you didn't miss much.
I didn't miss much.
No.
Yeah.
All right. So the next, let's see, what's the next one? Well, the next one is Drive of the Season.
Serious time.
We'll do it live!
Okay, Paul, the music has stopped. Now
Has it? I don't know. I can't tell. I can't hear it.
Paul's sitting here saying, you're dancing like an idiot.
He's lost it.
Yeah. So, Drive of the Season. Hard not to give this one to Lewis. Paul, talk us through it.
Very hard. I'm going to give it to Lewis. Absolutely. Yeah. How could you not? There's been some great drives, literally, he's already won multiple world championships, but this was a formidable,
no doubt,
showing of his skill.
I'm giving it to Lewis. Look at me, a Lewis hater, giving it to Lewis. It's incredible. I would also say Alonso and Leclerc could be on that list. Mm-hmm. I thought had fabulous seasons.
And I'm going to add Verstappen.
And Verstappen, no doubt.
He's
Max is the man.
He's made a good future for himself in getting rid of Ricciardo.
Oh, for sure. Mm. Yeah. Which brings up, I think I have that soundbite. I'm probably missing it, Paul. No. Oh, here it is.
Yes, the young Dutchman was a bit annoying out there today.
Yes, the young Dutchman was a bit annoying.
Yes, he was.
It's an old favorite. Let's see. And then finally, should we come down to team of the season? Who do you pick?
I'm going to pick Sauber.
It's a good pick. It's a really good pick because it's on my list too.
I think they're the team that obviously came from the bottom of the pile to raise themselves that high. We know obviously Mercedes ended up winning the championship by a good handful, but I don't think they actually put out the best car on the grid, at least certainly for most of the season. We can't put Ferrari in there because they did have the best car and they kind of threw it all away. Right. So I'm going to go with Sauber.
Right. I would put honorable mentions to Haas, I think, coming, and Renault, best of the rest. Obviously, you got to go Renault, rebuilding, brought Nico in, best of the rest. That's as good as they could do. But I thought Haas gave them a run for the money. I think that there was, from Austin onward, cost Haas because I think they were poised to be best of the rest and could have been best of the rest. But still, ending up fifth in the championship, so screw them!
Idiots.
Stupid Haas team. No, I thought, to end up fifth in their third season, is just fabulous. It was a great season for them. So, good pick. Let us know who you guys think. I see Alejandro agrees with you. Sauber. Paul says Sauber did improve. Yes, they did.
Force India for the comeback. It wasn't
Force India. Yeah,
wrong name. So
Racing Point Stroll.
Racing Point Stroll.
Stroll GP.
Super
whatever.
Stroll F1.
It's like Super Aguri. Yeah. It's Super Stroll F1.
Yeah, I think that's what it should be. Yeah,
that's pretty good. So there you go. Minnie says Stroll for driving. That's nice. Before we go, let's see. Any questions you're dying to answer, Paul, from your?
I was mesmerized by your soundboard, so I've been listening to some questions.
Yeah, Alejandro said the Halo E-beautification. To be honest.
Oh my God.
We
didn't talk about the Halo. Obviously, I don't know if we need to keep talking about the Halo, but. That's obviously not going away. We know that.
I don't even want to get into the Halo because then I get accused. What are you against safety? I get beat up every time I mention. I dare even mention Halo. I get beat up.
Well, rightfully so. But.
All right, whatever.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So it was fun. I hope this has been fun for you. Apologies for those listening on audio only because we did have visuals and hand cues and we were doing other things and saying other things, and
U-Haul trucks were driving.
Trucks driving behind me. And Paul, I gotta say, this is a very dapper sweater you've got on.
Thank you. I made it myself.
There's hardly any Paul left. He's like at his keto sparring weight.
I'm intense training.
Yeah, it's crazy. So So, is there any final thoughts before we log off on this? Do you want to share a very happy holidays?
Happy holidays for sure.
You?
Thanks for sticking with us through this. This is our first one.
Yes.
Hopefully we can do it more and maybe make it a bit more compact next time. Because spending all this time with us, much appreciated. And maybe we'll figure a way of maybe putting this into its own spot, maybe once a month. I don't know. Yeah. Feedback, please.
Yeah, let us know
what you'd like to do.
Yeah.
On what you want us to talk about and how this format works with what we normally do on the podcast. We were talking about the podcast. You can drive drive to and from work. Sometimes you're in bad traffic and you listen to the whole podcast. It's a little bit harder to sit down and without your wife coming down and asking you to go clean out the gutters for 2 hours. What are you watching these two idiots on TV for so long?
See, I always said on the podcast, people say, hey, you ought to do video, you ought to do video, you ought to do video. And I thought, does anyone really want to watch two heads talking? And everybody's like, yes, you should do video. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, here we are.
Here we are doing video, so it's talking heads.
Maybe I shouldn't have put my sunglasses on. You can feel free to critique what we do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you can't say because I have to have these to read. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining us. A big shout out. I'm going to put this. You know what I'm going to do, Paul? I'm going to put this up because if you came late, you need to understand this. If you understand anything, that's what you need to understand. The entire thing is made possible by our Patreon supporters. So do me a favor, go find one of our Patreon supporters and profusely thank them for being a Patreon supporter because none of this would happen without them.
Then next time maybe I can get a bit more than water in my drink. The funds won't be so thin. But
maybe we'll get something else. So
probably best for me not to drink so early.
Well, in fairness, it was a little early here when we started this to be, kicking them back.
Yeah. And you see me when I'm drunk, and God knows what I would have said, really.
No, it's not pretty.
No.
Paul's one of those angry, violent
So
drunks.
angry. I've got a hair trigger temper. I just don't even know.
I'm one of those happy, fun, make a lot of jokes drunks. He's always got to, I've got to fight and
fight.
Yeah, man.
Get me to an Arsenal fan quick.
Just like an Essex boy. You're totally a West Ham fan. So anyway, happy holidays to you, and thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for watching, and let us know what you would like. And I mentioned this on our Patreon page to our Patreon supporters. Hey, look, we're going into 2019. Always open to ideas, what you'd like to hear more of, any ideas you would like to hear Paul and us talk about. Yes, right now we're both physically in the same location, but we certainly can do this same video format, just two Skype side by side. Happy to do that. But let us know what you guys think, what you'd like to hear in 2019. But until that time, we're going to get through Christmas, which is Christmas Eve is tomorrow. And then we have Christmas, and we'll get through that. And then we'll come back for New Year's, and Grace will hopefully be here early part of the year. And we'll maybe do this with Grace. Who knows? But
that would be interesting.
It would be.
Yeah. Talk about don't let her give it a drink,
Whoa. Yeah, that gets real ugly real quick.
That's when the police cars pull up.
Yeah, that's when people get arrested. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us, and I guess I got to log off with this, Paul. Here we go. All right, folks, have a great holiday Christmas. Happy Christmas. Here we go.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
All right, take care.